the easiest way for me to create a home wherever I am is to start cooking and to start cooking for the people I'm working with, you know. So it's even just that sort of feeling of, okay, I do live here right now, even if it might not be for 10 years, it will be, I'm here for 6 weeks. But now I've had to sort of emotionally register how I use my cooking now, because I do actually live here.
Erik, it's so lovely to talk to you.
Yeah, it's nice to see.
So, you are from Canada.
Yeah, yes and no. So I'm a Canadian American. I lived in Calgary for a while. My dad is a very serious, kind of very patriotic Canadian. But I'm a dual citizen.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but you were born in Canada.
I was actually born in Seattle, Washington, California.
Really?
Or, Seattle, Washington, in the U.S. And my parents are now in California.
Oh, I see. Okay. But and you came to Vienna. When did you arrive?
I came last year. I guess I showed up just a little bit over a year ago. I keep on looking over this way because I have Max pawing at me for treats, because he he knows that when somebody's teaching or on Zoom or that sort of thing. So yeah, I moved here from New York last October.
Oh, okay. And you came just before the pandemic, I believe.
Yes, so I came and did my audition the first week of March 2020. I think actually my audition on the stage was the day before the citywide lockdown happened. The very, very first lockdown. It wasn't quite, I'm taking over New York in the same way, but it was just starting to get really bad.
Yeah. And was it, I mean, you probably didn't expect it to last this long before you came.
Right. I mean, the simple answer to that is no. And I don't think any of us did, right?
Yeah.
It's a little, it's not the word, but overwhelming. Feeling.
But listen, tell me, how did you start in music? When did you start singing?
I started singing pretty late. I'm not really until high school, sort of my primary education. I was always, I studied music all throughout my teen years and my young years. I was not a kid who did music all my life, sort of thing. It was very, very academic, and but music was something that just didn't really take hold, because in my household, parents were so passionate about music, and so passionate about traveling, that we spent so much time traveling and going to things that I had very little time to do my studies and music and all the travels we were taking. It's a very artistic household. So I didn't start singing until really I was about, I guess, 15.
Really? And what made you then start singing? Or what was the interest?
I trained as a jazz musician when I was younger, sort of in my intro to it all. And my teacher, who I really, really admired and still do, told me, I won't let you play anything if you can't sing it. It's very important to him. He's very much sort of old school jazz player. And so he made me take singing lessons. And then I took singing lessons. I joined the choir in high school, because I was also not a jock at all. And I wanted it was nice for me. So I did I studied singing as sort of like a chore when I first started, because I really wanted to be a jazz musician. And then I ended up joining the choir in high school, because I wanted a social group and I wanted to sing. And So I joined the choir, and then slowly and slowly, I just fell more and more in love with it.
Mm. And still, do you still like singing jazz?
No, I don't do much of it anymore at all.
Really?
I was more of a jazz player. I never really sang.
I see.
Part of the reason that I never really sang so much too is that I think when you're younger, and especially with a lot of popular music, it's hard for low-voiced guys to sing much of anything, because there just there aren't many of us in popular music. Mm. And I think that was always very hard. And so, jazz, sort of, you hear that, but I never sang much jazz. I still love, it's one of the things I love to go to. I'm very happy that I have sort of married into married into jazz royalty, because my wife's uncle is the band leader of the Yellow Jackets, the big jazz group. So,
okay.
Yeah. So I'm a very avid audience member.
Okay. Yeah. But now, did you, when you started singing now and discovered your voice, did you think then immediately, okay, I want to do this as a profession?
No, I was really bad. It was really, 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 really bad. And I mean, my parents will openly talk, and we all laugh about how horrible it was. And I mean, I listened to the tapes from the beginning, and I just go, oh no!
I can't believe it. Really?
It was a long, painstaking thing for me. But I was going to go in, and I had signed up to go to college as a double major in physics and musical education. I thought, I love music, but I don't really have what it takes. And so, but I'd still really like to be involved in educating. And I would like to go to teaching music while also doing my academic stuff. And then my friend Anthony and I remember they had just opened, or had just recently opened, the Walt Disney Concert Hall in Los Angeles. And all sorts of famous performers were coming through and giving solo recitals. And I remember there was one of this guy, Bryn Turtle, who was coming through and giving a big solo recital. And I went and I saw it. And I just sat there. I had never really heard a guy who sang in that sort of way live. I mean, I had been to plenty of opera as a kid, but it was just different. This sort of concert setting really, really appealed to me, because I'm a really big literature nut. I obsessively read. And so this whole sort of solo concert program of poetry really appealed to me. And that's when I said, okay, I want to do that. I really, really do want to do that. And then I sort of course, we study in opera, but I considered myself much more of a concert and symphonic singer than I ever did as an opera singer for a very, very long time. And but that was sort of my foot in, was in the concert.
But now in America, because I've spoken to many artists in America as well. In America, the scene is a little bit different, because the funding is different, and a lot of people are also having doing the double thing. Like they have a career and then they do the arts on the side. And was that also something that you thought about when you studied then? Was there that double idea, or that idea of, is this going to be or bring me an income in America, or how do you feel in that way, in that sense?
I mean, I still feel the same way. My career was going well in the States before I came to Vienna, but there's a sort of unpredictability to the work, and to even you must know that so many Americans flock to European countries, not only because there's a lot of work to be had and it's the place where the culture is, the culture of opera and so on and so forth. But I mean, even basic things such as health insurance. You don't get or if it's a family leave or a vacation, or there are a lot of ways in which living in the U.S. as an artist and working in the U.S. as an artist is very, I think the simplest word is unhealthy. And both emotionally and physically and financially, if we're being really honest. And so I had even decided, even though things were going very well for me, if I didn't get a European offer and it was looking like I was going to be based more long-term in the States, I said, I'm actually going to leave music as a career and go into something a little more sustainable, because I'm a family man. I grew up with a really great family, and I value my family kind of more than anything, much more than I love being on stage, to be totally honest. And then as we sort of laugh, my parents say, yeah, and then Vienna messed it all up for you, you poor guy. And so then, now I'm here.
But
so I don't really think about it anymore. I mean, I have my big passion other than reading and music. Probably my biggest passion is cooking.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, I see your stories on Instagram, and it looks delicious. Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But it's also I think this is what I saw, or what I realized during lockdown as well, is that artists did a lot of cooking and baking. And I think it's a very creative thing that I never really thought about it that way. But I think cooking and baking is very creative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think too, it's something to me. I mean, I grew up in a family that my parents are both amazing cooks. And, cooking, I'm thinking because we moved around quite a lot, and I'm thinking most of the homes that we lived in, the kitchen was usually at the center of the home.
Really?
And to me now, I mean, I've been talking a lot with my wife about this. We're sort of in these strange swapped emotional spots where she is normally the kind, she lived in New York for almost 10 years, and she was based out of there, and she was working full-time as a freelancer, and she's used to having a home. And I am much more, as usually a freelancer who travels around and goes to different places. But the easiest way for me to create a home wherever I am is to start cooking, and to start cooking for the people I'm working with, So it's even just that sort of feeling of, okay, I do live here right now, even if it might not be for 10 years, it will be, I'm here for 6 weeks. But now I've had to sort of emotionally register how I use my cooking now, because I do actually live here. I'm not on the road anymore. Whereas my wife, we've totally swapped. She is now flying all over the place. And we talk a lot about that sort of, and she is also a cook too. And her relationship with cooking and food has changed too. I think artists tend to gravitate.
Yeah. But do you, wherever you stay, do you learn to cook the traditional foods of that place where you live? Or do you just go with that?
I always, it depends, right? Like I usually have a local show me. I always love to find a good pub wherever I am, because I think generally speaking, you find out what people actually eat in a country at the cheapest places.
Yeah.
You can go to the fancy places and have big expensive things, but I think most of the time it's just not what people actually eat.
Yeah.
So then I go to those places and I order something that I have no idea what the hell it is. And then I think, okay, what is that? And then I spend the whole rest of the night sort of like looking at how you make it and what you do. It's a little project.
Yeah. It's like the Wurstel stands in Vienna. That's the best places to get the Käsekreiner.
Exactly.
But that's amazing that you do that. And then you start experimenting with the foods then when you're on your own.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's much easier because if something is bad, you don't have to feed it to somebody else.
Yeah.
But and you call it a loss and you order a pizza and you try again the next day.
Yeah. But listen, now tell me about what is Christmas like for you? What do you normally do for Christmas?
So Christmas for us, I normally go, like I said, my family is very important. And so generally speaking, I don't work during the holidays.
Yeah.
Usually go home, take time off. And this year, obviously we have not been able to do that with quarantine time. And also my parents live in Southern California, and there is no better place to spend winter time than in Southern California, San Diego.
I can imagine, yeah.
So we just go and we cook. It's really, Christmas traditionally for me, except for the time that we spent in Canada, is not a big snowy sort of wintry time. For us, it's actually usually sitting by the pool and having a margarita and making a bunch of tacos and, sitting around and, that's when all the puzzles start to be brought out. It's actually kind of in a way, it looks almost exactly the opposite of sort of Christmas over here in Europe. Because it's warm, it's very light.
It's like in South Africa, you go to the beach on Christmas Day. Yeah.
Right. For us, it's really just about the family time. It's for us, we're not big on holidays, but my parents have always said holidays are just the best excuse to cancel everything and go see your family. Which is exactly right.
And what is your traditional food that you have on Christmas?
We now, especially in the past few years, because in the States, it's usually a turkey or a ham. You've got people who do that. But my dad was born in Indonesia. Mm-hmm. And so we now do, and he's a Dutch man. So we tend to do there's a thing called a rice tafel, which is a very popular sort of just smattering of foods that are sort of Dutch dough influence. It's a lot of fried rices and sautés and salads.
Okay.
Yeah. That's usually what we do.
Oh, okay. So that's the family tradition then.
Yeah. It's something that all tastes like home.
Yeah.
I ate so much of that food growing up. When you leave home, it was different when we were all in the same place. When we were all in the same place, we would do traditional Christmas meals. We would do the things that were okay. Let's have a turkey and let's do the stuffing and let's do the rolls and let's do the potatoes. And now that we're all away, as soon as my brother and I come home, we just want the stuff that only our parents can make, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, I can so relate to that because it's the same when I left South Africa. When you go back, you want to eat the things that's familiar to you, or I don't know. There's this connection between, like you say, between the food and being home, and I can totally understand that. Yeah.
I was reading this very interesting article in the New York Times a few weeks ago. It's something that really freaked me out during the COVID, even still. During all of it was the possibility. I had heard of people losing their sense of taste and smell for 8 months, 9 months. And I read this amazing article written by this man who's a food critic and a super taster and works for all the big famous restaurants. And he lost his taste and smell. Indefinitely, it still has not been fixed. And he wrote this big essay on how he was sort of evaluating what it meant to him as a person because of his work, but then also how he felt that he then lost the taste of, there were smells and tastes that used to remind him of his parents and dinners they had together. And I do think we are at the worst of it. The artistic career is nomadic, right? And I think no matter what anybody says, I am somebody who very much happens to really like being on the road because that's how I grew up. But nomadic life is very emotionally tough.
Yeah.
And having your roots ripped up all the time is, regardless of whether or not you're accustomed to it, it's painful.
But this is something that I think, when we look at art and when we look at artists, and you, this is something that I spoke to artists a lot about in the during the lockdown time, is that there's a perception of you, like we see you on stage and it's all, in a wonderful theater and so on. But there's so many stories behind the scenes, like you left your family behind to come and pursue your career here. And there are many people who have to do that, that they cannot be with their families, but they have to, for them to pursue the career, they have to be in a different country, or they have to be alone, and there's so many things attached to that. And that is part of your job, basically. That's part of all the things that is around your job. And I think it's also important that we talk about that, and that it's something to be honest about and say, it's difficult there. I mean, here are also singers who come from Australia, for example, and it's not so easy for them to go back, and especially now in the pandemic, it's more difficult even for people who live in the countries in Europe to sometimes go back to their families. So
right. Yeah, right. I think it's, we also, I think the thing that I'm really happy that people are talking about it now. And the sort of like strength in that too, is that the truth is that a lot of jobs are that way. I mean, I grew up, Maxie, I grew up with a father who had to spend half of the year on the road, and he wasn't involved with the arts. And as anybody reads any books by immigrant authors, so my parents now live on the southern border of California, and the amount of Mexican people who come over to the States in order to create a better life for their family, they mostly leave their family behind for their work in order to, at the end of the day, to provide and create. And that's the root of kind of everything, right? I mean, even the people who go on to say, most of the stories that we read. I'm a really big fan of this book by Joseph Campbell that's called The Power of Myth. And he talks about how we all, like every life is sort of dictated by a sort of archetypal journey that we then also have reflected in our artwork. And all pieces, whether they are theatrical, they are literary, they are, or even just personal, like a memoir level, they all tend to follow a hero archetype and journey, which often involves the departure from home.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I think it's also, but I think it's important that we highlight these things now, that especially around the arts. And I know it's, many people do that for their jobs, but for some reason we are blind when we think of artists doing it, or we're not aware of artists doing it so much. And so it's very interesting to hear when, how this is affecting, because I think that is something that affects you even in your career without you realizing, because if it's in your heart, then it comes out of you as an artist. So.
Well, and there's, as my mentor and teacher told me many, many years ago, he said, we don't sing about art and about poetry, and we just sing about people and what they go through.
Yeah. No, that's true. But now tell me, what is the best thing about Vienna that you discovered so far?
So I am not a city boy. I had the hardest 2 years of my life living in New York. That was tough for me. But I am definitely also. Can you hear Max growling in the background?
No, not really. No.
Okay, that's good. That's good. I just want to make sure. Clawing at a toy that he's thrown under the bed.
But Max can join the interview. Where is he?
He, unfortunately, he does love the camera. The big problem. But so I had come to Vienna 10 years ago with my brother. We had a big backpacking trip around Europe. I graduated from high school. I remember we came to Vienna right at the end. And so we were exhausted and we smelled horrible and we had no money left. And we were just walking zombies. I think we walked through Stephansplatz and we got a schnitzel somewhere in total exhaustion, and then went back to bed and finally went home after 6 weeks on the road or something. But we then coming back here now, I've really loved how much nature there is here in Vienna, and how much space and how much of a breathing room, and that it's not, I think the thing that I find the most refreshing, and I have specifically noticed it too, I not only love Vienna, but I really love the district that I live in, because I live in the 2nd district. And even the culture of the district that I live in is so much, it's a speed that I have not found anywhere that I have lived for a very long time. There's a sort of, they love to be outside. And there are just a lot of places to go. I mean, when I first moved here, especially when we got Max, I spent a lot of my time doing all the Stadtwanderwegs, and I now often go out to the countryside out around Vienna just to get that air,
Yeah, I must say, I totally agree with you. I mean, even the parks here are so, and when you go into these parks, it's also the people look so relaxed. It's almost as if in every park, it's a different little world that you enter, I love that.
Yeah. And I think the parks tell you a lot about, the parks tell you a lot about a city, in a very sort of, and even the neighborhoods, it's a very strange and interesting thing. That's what I would love.
Yeah. And now Max, did you get Max when you were here? Or did you bring him with?
So we had, my wife and I are big dog people. And we had always intended on getting a dog. And then we got here. And, with the neighborhood that we were living in, and as we sort of realized how dog friendly the city is, we took a look at some few pups, and then we found Max. And now he's, so like I said, my wife and I have now switched sort of emotionally. She is the freelancer who's always traveling, and now I'm the one at home.
Oh, yeah.
Which means that Max and I have become a little inseparable. Because it's,
I love your stories with Max. It's adorable, really. It's just amazing. It's such a wonderful bond that you two. You can clearly see that.
Yeah, he's a special little guy. He's a very strange dog. We always say that it seems like there's somebody in there. Because he's got real sort of like, but yeah, so we got him here, and and now he's probably the biggest part of our family.
Oh, that's amazing. Is there no way you can put him up to the screen?
Maxie. Oh. Come
Hello, Max. Oh, he's totally swagging. So, happy dog.
He's
Happy.
when I live alone, I do get made fun of about this by certain ballet dancers that I cook for both me and Max, because you can't cook for one.
Oh yeah,
right? That's too hard. And so he knows it's like dinner time. It's like, what's going to go on?
So you cook for him as well. Oh, that is so sweet. He must.
Well, and I guess that's a sort of side thing that we have really loved here about Vienna, is that as we're looking at getting a dog here, I do know that, so I grew up speaking German, so there's no language barrier for me. But my wife, she does speak German, but of course it's a whole other deck of cards here. And so, making friends, and then on top of that, being in lockdown, so hard to meet people, right? And we had done all this reading, and people said the easiest way to make friends in Vienna specifically is to get a dog.
Really?
And there are all of these weird sort of like friend groups, and we have all these big Hundezones, and there are all these, we laugh and call it like the wee little Venedig Owl, and so we call it the Real Housewives of Venedig Owl, because it just, you have all these like social groups and things. I met my best friends here in Vienna through them also getting a puppy at the same time, and so that's been really nice. Actually, been a very nice social culture.
Well, I see our dog zone here where I live as well. It's, the people, it's the gathering. You see that,
right.
I can see that from my window when they get together, the gathering, But the funniest thing, the other day, I saw two people standing and talking, and the guy's dog, it's a husky. The husky was sitting on the bench, and it was so strange to see the people standing, but the dog sitting on the bench.
Right. Which he also does that too.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, if he gets cooked for, then of course he needs to sit on the bench.
Well, it's interesting what I didn't realize. Going even back to the nomad thing, and to something that is sort of unusual here for us in the States. Usually when you adopt a dog, the dog is from where you are adopting the dog.
Yeah.
For the most part. And here I've noticed that all of these dogs come from neighboring countries. Yeah. For the most part. And it was a very interesting thing to also sort of be an immigrant to here, to settle in while also then taking care of an animal who is an immigrant, and has gone through these travels and is seeing everything for the first time. The reason he sits on a bench still is because when he first came into the city, he had been living on a farm in Greece. He was just, he had no idea what all the noises were. So he went and sat on a bench in the park, and he just sat and listened for about an hour and a half. And then he finally was like, okay, I guess I live here now. But of course, we all sort of do that in our own sort of larger way, right?
Yeah.
Into a new spot, and you have to sit and take stock, and then you just.
Yeah, I think we sometimes forget that animals, have that time also where they have to adapt to new situation and so on. And of course, they feel the energies of the people that they are with as well. So that's that's something I think we need to also take in consideration. But I think Max is very happy to end it up in your family. So that's wonderful.
Better be the spoiled boy. He's treated, my wife was always yelling at me. She said, you do feed him better than You cook for me, right?
Okay. But Erik, tell me, what is your wish for the future?
So what I have really been, I'm kind of getting it in real time. I have, it's funny, it's also an American cultural thing. We talk a lot about mental health in the US.
Yeah.
You know, and coming here, you know, you talk to somebody and you tell them, oh yeah, I had therapy yesterday, and they look at you like you just stripped down naked in front of them and ran through the street. And I've been very outspoken about mental health of artists, and that we do deserve to be treated better, but also to treat ourselves better and to treat each other better. And what I have seen sort of happen real time, which I've really always been dying to have happen in our field specifically, is that people are talking about that now. And I'm watching people, because a lot of things happened. If I'm going to cut out the tragedy of COVID, if I'm to solely focus on what happened to artists, is that artists were just discarded. Like 90% of the time, especially, I don't know what it was like over here, but in the States, you saw artists lose their entire livelihoods, and they were treated as if we weren't a part of society. And so I am now happy to see people really not settling. It's a weird combination, right? I'm happy to see people fighting for better treatment. I'm also happy to see people loving each other a little bit more. That's always been my big wish for what we do and for who we are as a community. And I'm happy to see that sort of happening in real time.
Yeah, I think it was a time also where people reflected and maybe realized that, hey, you know, we need to speak about this, and we need to also raise awareness to the fact that it's there, you know, that for artists. I mean, I myself spoke to many artists, and that this topic came up quite frequently, you know, that there's it's sort of nobody wants to say it, but everybody feels the same. And I think it has brought this up back to the surface, you know, people starting to question a lot. And it's like this one artist said to me that it's almost as if people think, hey, but you're doing your life's dream, you know, why are you then
right.
not happy?
Right.
But there's so many other things that come. It's not just about that, you know. There's so many things that come with the job, and I mean, this is really why I'm speaking to artists, and that I want to let people hear, you know, and people hear what it is like, and your stories, and not to make it sad or anything, but to just tell the truth and show some light on what it is like to be an artist, and what is your life like, you know, and that it's not just that part that's on the stage, but there's a bigger part behind that as well.
Something that I really, probably the most significant person in my entire artistic life is a man, Gerald Pope, who passed away really suddenly and unexpectedly about, what year is it now? It is 5 years ago. And something I'm really grateful for him. He really was family. But he encouraged me, even at the very beginning, as I was studying and going into all this. He said, the most important thing you can do as an artist is to read the biographies and autobiographies of other artists. And so for years, I just sort of devour through these books and these TV series and and these interviews, because it's important to know that artists are behind what happens on a stage. There's very much a real person.
Yeah, I found even when I started, even when I photographed artists in lockdown, and I started talking and hearing and just observing, I've learned so much from you, and from these interviews. And I just think if more people can listen and just just see the way you see life, or the way you live your lives, and your outlooks, and there's so many things, the perseverance, the motivation. There's so many things that's part of you as artists, and how you develop as artists. And I think it's life lessons that you learn from hearing what you say, and all what all different artists say. So I'm just always hoping that the person who needs to hear what somebody's saying on one of these interviews, that they hear it, and when that what it meant to me, listening to everybody, that it can also mean something to somebody else. So thank you so much for your time and for talking so openly about everything. And it's I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, of course. Of course.
And I hope one day I can experience your cooking, not just Max.
Yeah. Oh, the guy, he's looking at me right now.
It's eating time. It's dinner time. But Erik, thank you so much, and have a lovely Christmas. And I hope you have a lovely time with your family.
Of course, you too. Thanks.
Okay.
See you soon.
Thank you. Okay. Bye.
Bye.